Everyone's here. All the members,
Yeah.
full members are here.
We seated Walt last time. The time before that, we seated both Larry and Ed. The time before that, it was just Larry. That's what I have.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hi.
I'm going to call the meeting to order. There'll be no alternates seated this evening because we have full membership attending. Paula, any additions or changes to the agenda?
None.
Okay. Audience of citizens, is there anything anyone would like to bring up to us that isn't already on the agenda?
Excuse me, you skipped over the minutes.
Oh, forgive me, I apologize. The minutes of the meeting of March 28th, 2022. Any corrections, modifications? I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, either raise your hand or say aye.
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 Is that unanimous? Were there any nays? Any abstentions?
I'm
Justin is
because I wasn't seated last week.
And Larry is not voting on that. Let's see. Next up, audience of citizens. Is there anything anyone would like to bring up to us that isn't already on the agenda? Yes, Ms. Briggs.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on the method of commenting. At the last meeting, for the first time, I had been told that we couldn't comment on matters that were on that agenda. And with that interpretation, it means that the public cannot actually comment on matters that come before the zoning commission before they vote on it, on general matters. I understand the concept that if there's a public hearing scheduled, that would be the appropriate place for the discussion of an item. But there are a number of items that come to the Planning and Zoning Commission that may not require a public hearing, but the public should be allowed to comment. And under the interpretation that's being used now, P&Z members can't be approached outside of a meeting to discuss it because that would violate FOIA. And if we're not allowed to as the public to discuss an item and bring our concerns to the commission before the meeting vote, then the only time that the public has the right to comment on a regular agenda item is after the commission has already voted. And that seems to me the essence of non-participatory government, is that the public is essentially locked out from commenting or expressing a viewpoint on a regular agenda item at any point in time that would be meaningful. So I simply make that comment that I have never seen it where you couldn't comment on an agenda item. Setting aside the public hearing issue, that is the essential purpose of the comment period as I understand it, before the meeting progresses further with the actual action items on the agenda. So
I appreciate your comments and I agree with you. And I think making this statement, items not already on the agenda is something going forward that we shouldn't probably phrase it exactly like that. Maybe if it should be said that if there are items already on the agenda, we don't want to address them in the audience of citizens. We should only address them as part of the agenda. Rich?
If you look at our minutes, we addressed that and commission open discussion last meeting. And
no, but I appreciate Ms. Briggs' comments, and I think it's and if what we were putting in words didn't accurately represent probably our methodology, then those are comments that are very welcome and appreciated. And so moving forward, I'll change the verbiage to say that these are for items that are on the agenda. Those need to be addressed in our regular course of action as part of the agenda. Ms. Briggs?
Well, the public is usually never allowed to talk when you are actually discussing a business item, because that usually is the period reserved for the commission members to speak. So the only time normally legally I'd be allowed to tell you something if I weren't on the commission is in the audience of citizens.
I was agreeing with you.
Yeah,
I was agreeing with you, and I was thanking you for bringing up that point, because I think it's a more appropriate way to proceed. I just appreciate your input on it, and we will be modifying the way we approach this on a regular basis.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my intention wasn't to not hear the public's thoughts on items where there was no other probably avenue to present their thoughts. So it's a clarification that was very welcome, and I want to thank you again for that. Okay, anything anybody would like to bring up to us? Well, I'm going to have to practice not using that verbiage because I've used it for so long. So yeah, if there's anything that is that we have an open item on our agenda on where the public could comment, that would be the appropriate time. For other items that you'd like to bring up to us, this would be an appropriate time. And then we will have another audience of citizens toward the end of the meeting for anything that needs to be brought up. Yes, I see Catherine's iPad.
Hi, I'm Catherine Rowe, excuse me, Lake Road, 27 Lake Road in Columbia. I just wanted to make sure that you received the information that the Commission on Aging sent to you via Paula Stahl. I asked her to forward it to the Commission about information that gathered for the affordable housing, and I didn't see it on correspondence in anywhere in the agenda meeting. So I just wanted to make sure you did get that information.
Okay, Paula?
It's part of the packet that was
It's in the packet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else anybody would like to bring up to us? In case I can't see, are we all set? We're gonna, from this point, we're gonna move into our continued public hearing mode. This is Carol Briggs and others, the zoning amendment application to repeal section 52.7.5 event wedding venue facilities. I'm gonna ask Ms. Briggs if she would like to say anything additional to, maybe it would start out with you, and then we'll move on to other members of the public that have any comments or questions.
I think the only thing I need to do, because I think the minutes accurately reflected the concerns of all of the people who submitted the petition for the regulation amendment, that our reg amendment is consistent with the plan of conservation and development and would in fact enhance the plan of conservation and development by reinforcing the uses that would occur in an RA zone and are consistent with the Connecticut General Statute 8-3 that require that the changes be consistent with that, and simply would ask that the commission approve those regulation amendments that we have requested.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to that? Any members of the public? Well, I would ask you to state your, to cover this ground. When I recognize you, please state your first and last name and your address and go from there. Any other comments or members of the public?
Yeah,
Carol Williamson. You have to unmute, Carol.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is this the appropriate time to bring up some of the concerns I have about the actual application itself, or is there a more appropriate time to
No, this
do
would
that?
be a very appropriate time if you have concerns about.
I do. I talked to the Eastern Highlands Health District.
When you say the application to repeal the regulations.
Okay. No, this is concerning the actual permit to do this.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Well, I'm concerned that how are you going to get a fire engine or a bus through a 12-foot opening off a 17-foot road? I don't know that.
Are you referring to another agenda item that's on our agenda this evening?
Okay, I did not read the agenda. Is it? I'm sorry, I
Okay,
just
so
got
right
home.
now what we're doing is we're having a continuation of the public hearing on the request to repeal the
Okay.
event wedding
All right.
venue facility regulation. That's what the business is in front of us this moment.
Okay, all right. I strongly support that you repeal this. I don't think it was adopted properly because you did not look at the plan of conservation and development per your minutes and per the recordings of your meeting. And I think you need to back up and do that before you accept this amendment.
Back up and do what is so I understand.
Before you adopt a regulation like this, you need to look at the plan of conservation and development and see if it's compatible with the plan of conservation and development.
And so how does that reflect on the request to repeal the regulation? Because that's the issue that's in front of us this evening.
Yeah, but I'm saying that because you didn't do it correctly the first time, it should be repealed.
I don't necessarily concur with your perspective on that, but I respect your right to say that.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
No.
Any other comments from members of the public?
Yes.
I
am Mike McGaldy, and this is Donna Mitchell McGaldy. We live at 33 Golden Road.
Yes, and I couldn't hear your name, sir. It faded out.
Michael McGaldy.
Okay.
33 Golden Road.
Sure.
So we also request the repeal of the amendment. I guess what I'd like to say, and if this is an appropriate forum to say it, we've lived in this town for over 15 years. We picked the parts of the town we lived in based on what we wanted to have, which was having a peaceful neighborhood, a quiet neighborhood, tranquility. And I think the very reason someone would like to build something in this environment is exactly why I chose to live here. And I feel that putting something like the reason I'd like to see this follow the conservation of development is that outlines all the reasons and factors that should be considered. And my concern is I feel that this proposal does not adhere to that. I think it's going to create noise levels that cannot be contained. I think it's going to create traffic situations. I live on Golden Road. I drive up and down Cards Mill and Golden, and it is not an easy road to drive, and it's very narrow. I'm concerned about the impact on the environment, property values. I chose to live in a residential area. If I wanted to live in a commercial area or an area with a commercialized event or venue, I would have done that. I came here to kind of enjoy nature, and you can create buildings. You're not going to control the sound, the noise, the traffic, the accidents that result, the disruption to the lives of the people who actually chose to live here. It would now be forced to basically endure circumstances, sound, lights, disruption. And I find
just a point of order. There's some microphones that are not muted. I would ask that you mute your microphone.
Okay. So, I guess what I'm saying is, I moved here to be able to be in a nice area of town. And I'm concerned that this will really be disruptive to people who chose to live here. And this is where we live. If someone's going to have a business, but it's going to impact my life, my area. And I made decisions moving here deliberately to be away from commercial areas. I've lived in towns that were very developed and made a decision to move to Columbia for a reason. So I'm concerned that the change that's been made is not in alignment with conservation and development. That I'm concerned about that and the longstanding impact and the implications that this will have. We're talking one thing. Once we do this, I think it opens it up to multiple developments. And I think the message it sends to the people who live in the areas is that commercial development is more important than the people who live in the area that's residential, soon to become commercial.
Thank you for your comments. Are you all set?
Do you have anything you want to add?
Can't hear you.
Sorry. My name is
Yes, we still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Barely. Well, I have a big mouth.
Now
Too.
Okay.
Now you can hear me. Hi, I'm
No.
Donna Mitchell-McGaldy. So my concern is, I really do think we need to repeal the regulations that were amended previously. We have a lot of concerns, as I'm sure you know, with turning residential areas into commercial areas. I'm sure you know Golland very well. I'm sure you know this part of the town very well. The roads are going to be extremely dangerous if they put a wedding venue there. And I know this is a different part of another discussion. It's going to be dangerous for them. And I'm sure we wouldn't want people coming into our town and getting hurt. So just something to consider. So I absolutely, I think we need to take another look at those regulations. I think we need to appeal them. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue?
Yeah, I have my hand up.
Bear with me. I can't see everybody all at once on my computer screen. And that would be, please go ahead.
Hi, Greg Mooney, 39 Golland Road.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, I support this amendment that's being proposed. I was one who actually supported it with Carol. I think that it goes along with our plan of conservation, and I hope that the commission values the feedback from the residents, that this was proposed by the residents in Columbia. And the last public hearing, you heard a lot of the comments. So I hope that the commission considers that.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments very much. Anyone else that would like to speak on this issue? I would like to bring up something in the public hearing. We received a lot of correspondence, over 40 letters with varying degrees, with different perspectives. There's a lot to process, but we also did receive from one town resident, and I'm not going to name the name of the person that sent it, but it was I'm sorry, I apologize. That's something for me to bring up at a different point in the meeting. So I'm going to pass on this right now, and please bear with me. We've had a lot in front of us, and we're taking, I just want to say to the members of the public, we're taking very, very seriously all of the input that we received. There's really no room in our methodology for saying, this is what we think and we're not going to move from it. We care a great deal about what the public and the applicants' perspectives are. So that said, Mr. Boulard.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to allow members of the public to voice their opinions, and my comments are fairly limited. I don't intend to repeat everything I said last time. As you know, I do represent Valley Street Investments LLC, which opposes the adoption of the proposed repeal of 52.7.5. As I stated previously, there's been absolutely no change in circumstances that would warrant this commission, in effect, to overturn its approval of this section last, I think it was August or September, some 7 months ago. There was no appeal taken from that. And there is significant support in the town of Columbia for this for the regulation that's presently in effect, and many residents oppose the repeal of that regulation. So there was some, I believe, about 40 letters that were filed, and I know they're on your website, so you would have the opportunity to review those letters, and I would urge you to do so and make them part of the record. I think it's important. Certainly your legal notice indicates that people are not able to appear personally, that they could submit written comments, and those 40 residents have submitted written comments to you. And it would seem, well, I understand those sentiments of the residents may be closer to a project that they think is going to happen, but it's not really before this commission. I think overwhelmingly the Columbia residents support the present amendment 52-7.7.5. So, and contrary to the statements, the statements are thrown around that it doesn't abide by your plan of conservation and development. And I just don't think that's true. I think going through the plan is any number of opportunities for this amendment to be in conformity with your plan, including the fact that one of the goals is to protect what residents value in Columbia, and that's a rural development, but also while encouraging development that's compatible with the rural character of the town. And I think these regulations do that. You have the plan that that you've enacted provides significant safeguards, significant limitations that will protect and enhance the rural character of Columbia and protect those abutting property owners. In the plan of conservation and development, there's concern about taxes and how to raise more tax revenue. This again would be an opportunity for the town to do that without disturbing significantly the rural nature of the town. Another one of the goals is to enable existing businesses to grow and new businesses to find opportunity to establish a business in town. And you've accomplished that goal when you enacted this regulation. I would also note, and we're not specifically talking about any specific project, but on the books right now in Columbia, you do have the opportunity for a large acreage farm winery to hold an event that would include a wedding event under your regulations. And in some cases, that regulation provides less protection to Columbia residents than 52.7.5. So I would ask you to consider the written comments. I think that you have done an excellent job of considering the competing interest of all of the residents of Columbia, including those that may be in proximity to a project that we all know may be on the drawing board. And I would also note that all of the residents will have an opportunity to specifically address any project that comes before you. And at that time, they can express specific concerns about a specific project. I think the commission has done an excellent job of crafting a regulation that makes sense and that is not going to negatively impact the character of your town. And in fact, in my opinion, will enhance it. So I thank you very much for your consideration. I think this application filed by Attorney Briggs should be, and others, should be denied. I would ask that you do so. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who has anything to say on this from the public? Any members of the commission that want to get any questions or questions of the applicants on the record while we're in public hearing mode? Because I suspect if there's not a lot more, no more public comment, that we will likely close the public hearing. Rich?
Yes, I have a comment, please.
Oh. Yeah, I recognize Rich Napolitano.
I'm a member of the public who also has something to say.
I understand. I just recognize Rich Napolitano. Yep. We'll get to you.
I have my.
Rich, did you want to say anything? Okay, I'm sorry. And who was that? Who's trying to say something?
Hi, it's Nikki Keltson, 5 Baker Hill Road.
How are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I was late logging in, but I was driving home and saw the horses out by my neighbor's house here on the corner of Baker Hill and Cardsmith. And again, I have to ask this question and a couple other things after the attorney spoke. This is how this is zoned as agricultural. I still don't understand. This doesn't make sense to me as a wedding venue, and that's purely what this is going to be. And I know you're probably thinking, how is she asking this question again? But I understand that a vineyard has agriculture on it. So if that then becomes some place where somebody might hold a wedding, but it's still growing something, this is growing nothing. So I don't understand this at all, how it can be zoned for something. And that's what this appeal is about, from what I understand. So that occurred to me as I was driving home. There's horses grazing here. And I did actually read every single one of the letters that came in. And with the exception of, I believe, 2 residents, all of them were not from this area. So I think that says something that, you know, none of those, with the exception of 2 people, most of them were not from this area. Pine Street, Route 87, they're not in this general vicinity. So that said something to me. And
yeah, see, we're not, just for point of order, we're not talking about any potential application that may or may not be in place under this regulation. We're simply in this public hearing talking about the request for the repeal of section 52.7.5. So we're not talking about specific places. We're talking about everywhere in Columbia that's zoned residential agricultural. So we're not talking about any applicant's application other than Ms. Briggs' application to repeal this regulation.
But the last person, that I believe he's a lawyer who doesn't live in town, is that correct? The last person who spoke right before me, these are things he brought up. He
brought up points about the regulation, as best as I recollect. He wasn't addressing specifics in a specific application. He was making general comments with the perspective on us adopting things and the history of adoption. And please correct me if I misheard that from any member of the commission. But so that isn't what I didn't hear the same thing that you did. So we're not talking about we're not talking about any potential application that is in that would be in the next public hearing. So I would appreciate just limiting the discussion to this issue at hand here tonight for the sake of clarity.
Well, so it's not clear then, Rick. I respect you and the position you're in, but it's not clear when he talks about that and the potential increase to taxes and about a wedding venue for vineyard.
I don't want to be in a position of defending or not defending.
It just
we
doesn't
simply
make
want
sense.
Information, but there's a procedure in place, and the procedure is that we take into account pertinent public testimony about the issue at hand. The issue at hand isn't a specific application. It's the specifics of this regulation. And everything that I heard from Mr. Boulard that you're referring to, and he did mention for a point of order that he does represent a business entity, but he talked in general terms about the impact of this regulation. And I'm not defending or taking any position. So your comments about a specific application are not appropriate in this public hearing here. They should be directed to us at a different time when we have a public hearing on that issue. So that's all I'm saying to you. And I don't agree with you that Mr. Boulard was talking about the specifics of a specific application. He was talking about the generality of what this regulation enabled or doesn't enable for the town in general.
And I'm saying it's not clear to me as a resident that he can speak on that. And I'm saying I'm speaking on it too.
I'm trying to clarify that to you.
I know.
And a measure of respect. You know, we don't know each other well personally, but man, everybody I know that knows you thinks the world of you. And I just want to make sure you understand. So if I'm not entertaining a detailed discussion about the things that you're bringing up, there's a reason why, because you're talking about a specific application that we're having a public hearing on later this evening. So it's not appropriate to be making testimony on that, even though we haven't opened that public hearing formally. I'm trying to be procedurally correct. And, there will be a forum for your views on that application later on.
Truly, I understand that. But what I'm saying is very confusing that he could bring it up and that I was just trying to respond to. So I don't want to argue.
He didn't
anymore.
bring up the application. He brought up the generalities of this regulation. And I felt he was very careful not to be specific. And if he alluded to another application, it was more illustrative, and I didn't even garner that out of it. What I'm saying is we have a procedure, we try to follow it for the sake of fairness on both sides so that it's a level playing field for people on both sides of an issue.
Okay. I'm not trying to argue anymore. I'm just saying I was
I'm not
confused.
trying to argue either.
So thank
I'm trying
you.
to explain why the things that you were trying to talk to, they were very specific to that application that's going to come up in the public hearing that's after this one.
Then maybe I'll just say it then. So
yeah, that's
thank you.
That's what I would encourage you to do. We want to hear everything, all your thoughts on it, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There was Bethany Colonna, is it? I see a hand up.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Bethany Colonna, 93 Johnson Road. I just wanted to say that I support everything Mrs. Carol Briggs, Mr. Greg Mooney, and Mrs. Carol Williamson have said about repealing this regulation amendment. I don't believe it goes along with the plan of conservation and development. This area is zoned as residential agricultural. I'd like it to stay that way. I don't believe this is an appropriate use of the land, and I'm concerned about our property value. It's a residential area. That's why we moved here over 4 years ago. And I think, you know, listening to those in the immediate area that this regulation, you know, this amendment would affect is very important. So I support everything that they've said so far, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. There's somebody named iPhone with no name.
Yeah, Bob Burns, 93 Johnson Road. Just want to say that I support Carol Briggs, everything that she has said about the amendment, everything that McGaldy said, Greg Mooney has said. I agree 100% with what they're saying. I just want to get my voice out there and show some support.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. Carol Briggs, did you want to speak again to this?
I did briefly. Once again, a comment is comparing these wedding event halls with farm wineries. And that's a false comparison. As Nikki pointed out, farm wineries are tied to an agricultural use. And in fact, our farm winery special permit has a renewal clause. So they have to behave or you guys don't renew their permit. This permit, once granted, is perpetual. And that creates a great deal of power in the holder of that special permit. So the continued reference to an agricultural use as being comparable to a purely commercial activity is not one that the commission should consider as comparable. This is a purely commercial activity that's being foisted upon anybody in an RA zone that has the misfortune of being near something that has 25 acres or more throughout the town. You've heard it. We came here because it's a rural area, because it's quiet. The paper just had a nice article about the town trying to support economic development in Columbia Commons, the commercial zone. And that's where our efforts in the town should be focused on, is the existing commercial spaces and expanding and developing those rather than taking over our residential agricultural zones with these types of activities anywhere in the town. And I realized people are referring to an application, which I'm not going to refer to, but I think that the point is that people can see in reality, they can envision what could happen in their neighborhood. And that is, I think, why you have so many people concerned about this. We can see what could happen. Okay. And that ends my comments.
Thank you very much. There's Mr. Stumpf is sharing a screen with us. Is it?
I don't know if you can hear me.
What is it you're trying to do?
I'm trying to support Carol Briggs's discussion. I am in full support.
Okay. So if you could not share your screen any longer, or if our meeting moderator could cut off your ability to share a screen, that would be helpful.
Please do.
It's interfering with my ability to see people.
No, he's done.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not muted, Tom.
Sorry.
All right. Is there any other comments from anyone on this issue? Carol Williamson. You need to unmute, Carol.
I also support Carol Briggs's repeal of this regulation, support this amendment. I think this new regulation puts an undue burden of worry on the people all over town that some kind of a venue could move into their neighborhood. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that at this point, but anywhere there's 25 acres in this town could have a commercial venue put on it. And I think that's just unfair to do that to the people, and they would have to worry about this type of thing. And I would ask you as board members to think about the citizens of this community and not just one rich person who wants to come over and put a venue in a residential
I'm sorry,
area.
that's inappropriate. We're not talking about an application right now. We're talking about a repeal of a regulation.
Yeah, I'm in favor of repealing this regulation.
Okay,
for those
thank
reasons.
you very much. Thank you. Anything else from anyone else? Mr. McGaldy?
Yep, I just wanted to make
Could you
sure
state
that
your first name and last name and address for the
Michael
record again?
McGaldy. Yep, Michael McGaldy, 33 Gollen Road. So again, I also support Carol's repeal of the regulation amendment. And again, generally, I think the idea of taking residential areas and allowing commercial development is bad for the town as a whole and the people who live in those areas. And again, I agree that the people who live here should have a voice, and I hope that that can be considered.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who has something to say on this?
Okay, I'm going to try again, Rick. That's okay. This is Nikki Keltson. I support the repeal of this, and for the same reason that everybody else has said, and I just support it. So I'm going to stop there.
Thank you very much.
Before I say something out of order.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to say something on this topic? Okay. With that said, I'm informally polling members of the commission. Are we ready to close the public hearing on this regulation change? Anyone want to keep it open for any reason? So I'm going to make a motion that we close this public hearing.
Justin, I'll second.
Okay, Justin seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of closing this public hearing?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that would be unanimous. Thank you very much. So with that said, just members of the public, the next item on our agenda is discussion of this. This is limited to commission members and our professional staff speaking on this proposed regulation change. So that I'm going to lead into this, and would anyone from the commission like to say something about this? I don't hear anyone speaking up. I have a couple things that I would like to say to everybody, to the members of the public and the commission. We adopted this regulation initially because we felt it was going to be a potentially very beneficial use of larger tracts of land that would see very limited use. And I don't think in any way we looked at it as a way to keep the land from getting subdivided longer term. Having a wedding event, some of us may be familiar with a similar type of venues that would be permitted under this that exist in other towns and didn't hear anything negative about them. The limitation on 15 events per year with somewhat concentrated people coming in, but not a huge number, and a very limited concentration in any given half hour of people exiting an event like this. It felt, as a commission, and I'm kind of saying this to the public because I think it warrants some explanation why we adopted this regulation, felt that this would be a good potential long-term use for the land because it wasn't a high impact usage, and it was in an RA zone. So we were particularly sensitive to the impact on residences in general that might be in proximity to this. And the limitation on the number of events significantly limits how many trips are going to occur in a 12-month period. That said, we're hearing different things from the public in this public hearing. And if there's something I wish that we did address in more detail in the original regulation, is that maybe we would have done well to limit it on higher traffic capability roads, trying to still give an incentive that keeping this land from getting chopped up into, 1.5 acre building lots. This was a more preferable direction for us to lay out for the use of this land. And I think that's what, and I would hope that members of the commission chime in and well, not chime, I don't mean to belittle anything you might say, but if you would speak to this issue, that was what was in my mind when we adopted this regulation as it was proposed. It seemed like it was a really nice way to keep land from getting chopped up. And there was no pressure at the time we adopted the regulation for land to be chopped up. It's not economic now, but look what's happened with the housing boom. There's going to be pressure for land to be divided going forward. And, to see 13, 14 building lots, whatever the number we allow in our subdivision regulations, and with a road circling out, possibly 20 or 25 houses added to this a site, not this specific site, but any site in Columbia on a quiet road, would a wedding event venue be a more preferable way of giving that land some stability? So that was the rationale. And I'm just trying to explain to the public that we considered an awful lot in our discussions. The minutes don't reflect every word that was said by every member. It's not possible. You could go back and listen to the tapes. But that said, our eyes have been open to another view of this from members of the public. And we have had some people speak in support of maintaining the status quo, but we've had a lot of comments from the public asking that we repeal this. So anyone else on the commission have anything to say about this? Bob?
Rick,
I'm sorry. We'll get to you. Bob Powell?
Thanks, Rick. A couple of things that I think are important to bring up. One of which is that this regulation that is on the books that we established last fall is a town-wide regulation. It is not site-specific and is not specific to any particular applicant. It is a town-wide regulation. So that I think it's important for people to understand that. So people that are making comments about this regulation have written letters, for example, to the board, are addressing it as a town-wide regulation. It's not, again, not site-specific. So that people that may be in favor of it, may be in favor of it, and there may be something right next to their property that could be developed as a wedding venue, and they're in favor of it. The second thing is that the regulation that's on the books does not give an as of right to build to any applicant. There's a very stringent approval process that the applicant has to go through. There are many safeguards that are written into the regulation, things such as noise, traffic, number of events, hours of operation. There was a lot of time spent by this board and the public in developing this regulation to ensure that anything that is developed is done in a proper manner. It does not adversely affect people. each applicant, in any planning and zoning application, each applicant is considered on their own merits, individual merits. So that one application compared to another application is very, very different. Each application is considered on its own individual merits for site-specific applications. And the last thing I'd like to say is that the public has a voice in each and every action that the Planning and Zoning Commission does. Every public and zoning meeting is public. The agendas are made public. The meetings are on Zoom meetings right now. They may be hybrid meetings in the future. They may be in person in the future in the town hall. But I like to remind everyone that each and every meeting is open to the public, and that I personally would welcome anybody to come to those meetings and voice their opinions. So that, this is a public process. This is democracy the way it's supposed to work. So, thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Tom, thank you very much.
Yeah, I kind of just want to piggyback on what Bob said. I mean, I know that back when this regulation was adopted, we went through numerous meetings and spoke of the things that Bob talked about in terms of regulating anything that, could be detrimental to the neighbors. I know that myself, I was kind of focused on another property in town that I've always been kind of worried about, as you well know from my history, is a place up on 87 near the lake, not to mention any camps, but, because that was a concern of mine when we were doing these regulations. And I think that we did a great deal of work on it. And we had some input from the public, but nobody appealed our decision at the time. And as Bob said, and you said too, I mean, all of our meetings are open. Anyone is welcome to come. Anyone is welcome to comment. And I just think that I feel we should keep this regulation.
Thank you for that. Any other members of the commission? Any thoughts on this? And I would ask, because we are in the discussion mode as a commission, only currently seated members can actually speak at this point. So if you're an alternate and not seated tonight, so none of the alternates are, then unfortunately, it's probably not appropriate to make comments on that, just for the record. Alex?
Yes, there's been some mentioning of the land being agricultural. You could have an agricultural situation where someone establishes a mushroom farm, builds a large building and grows mushrooms. That would be an agricultural business. That means that there would be trucks, heavy trucks going and coming all day long, seven days a week. So you have to really pare down what's important. And I think if you have a situation where you have a low impact on a particular property, it's preferable to say even some other types of agriculture. That's just my comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the commission with anything to say about this? Paula, anything that you would like to add to this?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. So that said, what's the commission's preference? Would you like to take action on this application this evening, the application to repeal this regulation, or would you like to defer that action, a vote on that to another meeting? I think we have enough to take action on it tonight. Bob?
I think the only reason to postpone any action tonight would be if we were requiring any additional information.
Which we're limited as to what we could potentially gather because the public hearing is now closed.
Right, exactly. So given those facts, I think we should act on the application tonight.
Rick, I would agree with Bob. I think we should move forward.
Yeah, I agree too. We should.
I feel the same way. Rich, So Vera, same perspective?
Where'd Vera go?
Not sure. So that said, just some thoughts on this specific request for repeal. I think it was very much in our minds when we adopted this regulation that there were going to be sites that may want to pursue an application. Vera, I'm sorry, go ahead if you had something.
Yeah, I'm here. I was having trouble getting unmuted.
Okay.
When you were looking for me.
Okay. Any thoughts you would like to share with us on this application? Vera is on by telephone, not on a video link.
Right. I just wanted to make a comment. I'm not really sure who was speaking because I didn't hear the name clearly. I believe it was for the, I believe it was an attorney who was speaking to the progression of economic development and tax base and so forth.
That was Mr. Boulard, I believe.
Okay. I believe those two items are, it's just a comment, are not appropriate and not zoning issues.
Well taken. Well taken.
Because we don't consider that on any other application. We've been told time and time again that that is not our charge as a commission. And I just wanted to bring that forward in attention.
Just a point of comment, Vera. So this is not talking to any specific application. This is talking about the generality of the regulation and whether we want to repeal it.
Yes, I understand that. I understand that, but he was also speaking just to the generality of the repeal or not.
Okay. So that said, yeah, I'm not in favor of repealing this regulation because I think it allows the good use of certain parcels of land within town where it's optimal. Bob, you were very articulate in the way that you presented additional points that I'm not going to go back over them. You know, there's a rigid process involved under the regulation as it sits to evaluate an application, and fairly high bar for what's acceptable, and it's a special permit application. We have rather wide subjective latitude as we evaluate, and let me take back the wide part of that. We have some subjective perspective on it, and there were some valid points brought up about the difference between this regulation as it sits and our farm winery regulation. One of them is that a comment that I take very seriously is this is a permanent grant of a permit under this regulation if it's granted, whereas the farm winery is a 2-year permit. So if there's a lot more control long-term, that's a very valid concern. And I would encourage us, if we decide to keep the regulation, to put some strengthening language in it with regard to possibly renewability, like we do with a farm winery, and then strengthen some other aspects with regard to traffic, but that may or may not be needed. But I'm in favor of keeping the regulation as it's been, as it's currently on the books. And with that said, if there's no other comments from the commission, I would suggest that we put this to a vote.
Hey, Rick, just one comment. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to say, but I was obviously absent last meeting, but I just want to say for the record that I did review all of the testimony and the minutes from last meeting and have been obviously paying very close attention to this. So as it comes to a vote, I just want to make sure that that's on the record.
Okay, thank you. Rich, you had something?
I'd like to make a motion. We move this to a vote.
Okay, and what do you, is it, would you make a motion one way or the other, either in favor of adopting this repeal or voting against the repeal so we can take action?
Voting against the repeal. I'd like to make a motion Yep.
So you're voting not in favor of adopting this proposed change to the regulation.
Correct.
Okay.
It sounds more confusing than it is.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's
Can you repeat that, please?
Perhaps it's to deny.
It's to deny this application to change our regulations.
Yeah.
Would that be a more accurate way of putting it, Rich?
Yeah, the zoning amendment application to repeal 52.7.5. I'd like to not pass that amendment. That's correct.
Okay. Paula, stated that way, do you think that's legally acceptable?
It would be clearer to say deny, I think.
Yeah, I would
okay,
say,
yeah. I make a motion to deny the application to repeal section 52.7.5. Does that sound better?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second, this is Justin.
Okay. Any discussion among the commission members? Okay, all those members in favor of this motion made by Rich Napolitano to deny the change to the regulations, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions?
Yes. I'm
Vera,
against.
you're against the motion to.
Right. I would be in favor of repealing if that's how you're voting.
Okay, so so that would be a nay to this motion.
Right.
So we have anyone else on the commission. So all members are voting in favor of repealing this regulation modification, with the exception of Vera Englert, who is in favor of repealing the regulation. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay. Yes. So with that said, the motion to not adopt this regulation change is the prevailing vote of the commission. I want to thank all the members of the public. I would assume many of you are interested in the next part of our meeting. Paula, anything else you need from us on this issue?
No, the next thing on the agenda is the affordable housing plan.
Yes, so that's something that that's an agenda action item. Would you like to take action on the affordable housing plan as it's been formulated? I'm asking members of the commission.
Yes, why not? Yes.
Yeah, I would encourage us to vote on adopting this.
Can I intercede for a second? One of the things that the Columbia Commission on Aging was suggesting is that on page 17 of the plan, that the line that says incrementally grow the number of affordable housing units with a goal of 10 additional units over the next 5 years. They are requesting that we say 30 additional units over the next 5 years as part of our strategy.
Okay. What's your perspective on that recommendation, Paula?
I think it's an excellent recommendation.
Okay.
Question, Paula, do you think we can physically do that?
I think it's doable. 5 years is tough, but it's good to have strong goals. And the seniors in our community are really anxious to, and have been asking for housing, affordable housing. And I know the town is working towards that, but this might give the town just a little bit more initiative to get moving on it. It's something that's very much needed.
Paula, just correct me if what I'm stating is not accurate. So potentially this document could be used by a developer looking to develop affordable housing units as part of an application process with some government support. And so anything that we could do to make that another tool that they could use to pursue that, I would, you know, if it's a bit of a reach, I don't think there's any harm to putting that verbiage in.
Yeah, I concur.
Rick, just to piggyback.
I have a question.
Yeah, Bob was speaking, then we'll get to you.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, if a developer is going to be interested, then 30 units is going to be much more attractive to a developer from a financial standpoint than 10 units. There's a lot of infrastructure that has to be built for these facilities. And if you can spread those costs over 30 units as opposed to 10 units, then it's going to make it economically more viable.
Okay.
Agreed.
Vera, were you trying to address something?
Yes. The question I had is if we include the 30 units from the get-go and the state looks every 5 years for a 5% increase, you know, and then it's every 5 years after that, another 5% or 10%, whatever they're going to be looking for, are we setting our regulation up for failure?
It's not a regulation, it's a plan that's kind of a guideline that we put out there. So yeah, this has very little authoritative weight. This is a guidebook for the public to understand that we've looked at this issue, and it's, you know, we're required to have this by the state. And Paula, I'm going to say again, you did a beautiful job putting this together. So Vera, I don't think that it's going to count against us. Paula, are you aware of any way that having a lofty number like that could be could work against us?
No, I'm not. And it's in terms of Bob's point, even if the strategies in action only said that the goal was to have an additional 10, doesn't mean a developer wouldn't seek to have 30 or 40 units or whatever was financially beneficial. I know the town is looking to partner with somebody, which is just, they don't know who the somebody is yet, but trying to figure out a way to have a developer develop some affordable housing for seniors in Columbia. We have our neighbors to the south, Lebanon, has quite a bit of development for their seniors that the town has taken on, and Columbia is looking to do that as well. It's not easy. We have to find the right property at the right price and then find the financing. And it would, just having that in the plan, I think would help that, because then it could be quoted as a goal when we're seeking grants.
Okay.
Years ago, the State Department of Housing had a program where they were subsidizing development of senior housing projects. And at that time, there was a minimum of 32 units that had to be in each of the developments. There's one built in Pomfret, there's one built in Ashford. They're around various areas. And again, the state was subsidizing part of the development of those things, but one of their requirements was a minimum of 32 units.
Okay.
So I think the goal of 30, I think is an admirable goal. I think it's good for the town to commit to that in the plan. I agree with that, and I would support that.
So I would make a motion that, any other comments from the commission? I would make a motion that we adopt the affordable housing plan as presented, with the exception that on page 17, that the target goal be modified to be 30 units per the recommendation of the Commission on Aging. And I really appreciate their input on this.
You looking for a second?
I'll second.
I am.
I'll second it.
Yeah, Bob said it first. Any discussion?
He's quick.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So I would encourage members of the commission, members of the public, take a look. We will be posting the completed plan on the town website. It's a very well put together document done by Paula Stahl, our town planner. And we really appreciate all the constituencies in Columbia that have contributed to that. And I have to say, when we've held hearings for our plan of conservation and development, it's what we hear over and over. We're looking for a way for people as they retire to stay in town in affordable units. And in the past, the thrust was saying, you know, we would love to rent if that's it. It doesn't mean that this is even necessarily for a purchase. Our minds are wide open as a town. How do we keep people that love this town from having to move away because there's no good options for them here? We don't want to lose people that want to be here. So thank you very much, everybody. Next up is the
next item is just the regulation revisions, just the point that
we're going to pass over this evening.
We've just have a public hearing scheduled for April 25th to go over some of the revisions that the town has had to make because of changes to the state legislature.
And our other public hearing is scheduled for the same night?
No, that's May 9th.
May 9th. Okay. So the public hearing on the application for a wedding event facility is for May 9th. Just I want to make sure that's on our notation about that is on our next agenda for the public. Anything under communications and reports, Paula?
Nothing for me.
Commission open discussion. Rich?
Yeah, on audience of citizens, I think one thing we need to take a look at when we do it is we need to look at how many citizens are out there and set a couple parameters. Either each person can have 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever we decide. I think that's going to be on you to look at how many people are out there and want to speak, because that audience of citizens could go on for hours and some people still not get a chance to speak. So maybe we should set a limit pending how many people are, you know, in the group and wish to speak.
That's a good point. It was much easier when we were in person and we made people sign up on a sign-in sheet. I don't know how we would administer that. I'll speak with our board clerk, Joshua Stern, and with Paula Stahl, but that's a really well-made point. If there's some way we can ask people to organize their thoughts, and when we have a very important issue like we had this evening, if somebody wants to speak to an issue multiple times, I mean, I think that's an obligation we have, is to listen to all that. But
in the audience of citizens, I think they do at the Board of Selectmen. I've seen it done before, is they'll either put a window speaking, like we're going to dedicate 20 minutes to audience of citizens, or they say, okay, everybody if there's 40 people here, everybody gets 1 minute and maybe a 30-second follow-up, you know, at most, just to keep it the parameters so we don't spend the whole night here and everybody gets to speak.
You know how I love to move meetings along.
Yeah. UConn lost though.
I know. I DVR'd it, so we're talking about the UConn women's basketball team at our last meeting. I didn't want anyone to tell me what was going on. Okay. Anything under audience of citizens? Anyone would like to bring up to us?
I have something in the open discussion.
Ms. Briggs.
Thank you. Thank you for the time and considering the amendment, but obviously very disappointed with the decision. I find the contrast interesting where you have adopted a laudable affordable housing plan to support housing stock in town, but during the comments that the commission members, especially you, Mr. Nassif, you actually prioritize a commercial activity over 1.5 acre subdivisions in an RA zone. And it doesn't make sense. The whole idea of an RA zone is for residential activities. And if somebody wants to put in 1.5 acre houses on a 25 acre parcel, then God bless them. They're entitled to do that. And we're perfectly fine with that. But you're now promoting commercial activities over residential activities in a residential zone, but yet you're trying to support affordable housing with this plan that you've adopted. So the other point I wanted to make is under 8-3, you guys are supposed to consider the plan of conservation and development, and yet none of you even mentioned it during your discussion. And I looked back, and I did go back through the stuff last summer, and it wasn't even discussed then. There's a miss here between, you know, what statutorily your considerations are supposed to take into account and what you're doing. And I realize there's a lot of information coming at you, but that's why you use checklists. What does the statute say we're supposed to take into consideration when we make decisions? And I didn't even hear it mentioned except by us, the applicants, because we actually did read the statute and go, oh, okay, yeah, we're supposed to make sure that our reg amendment is consistent. No one here ever countered any of the statements that I made on how our reg amendment was consistent with the plan of conservation. You guys simply defended the fact that you thought this was a really neat idea last summer, and now you found out a whole lot of people think it's a bad idea, but you're defending your position. And we weren't talking about mushroom farms putting in, and you're right, it is an agricultural activity. And if trucks are going in and out every day, that's no different than a dairy farm where they're going in and out every day, or a winery where they're going in and out every day. That's part of being in an RA zone. We're used to that, but we're not used to people, 100 some odd cars piling out of somebody's driveway at 11 o'clock at night at the end of an event. That's not what we signed up for in an RA zone. So yeah, dairy trucks rumbling down the road, damn right. Manure spilling on my car as it comes out of that stupid a trailer that they pull behind their tractor because they're going to go spread it. Yep, that's part of country living. The smell of all of that when it heats up in late May, absolutely. Didn't sign up for sound and noise coming at all hours of the night every weekend during the summer or whenever it might be. So I am very disappointed because I don't think you folks considered what the statute was. You didn't even mention the statute. And I think that's, I hope, something that you folks look at going forward when you're considering these things. I can see you have done that with regard to these others, the cannabis, the affordable housing, those types of things. You do look at what the new statutes were, and you had to do it. And this just kind of, it fell off the tractor, and it fell off the tractor.
I'm giving you pretty wide latitude, but you know, this is an issue that we've discussed and made a decision on. You're obviously not happy with it. I don't want to rehash it.
Well, I'm entitled to a public comment session, Mr. Nassif.
You're making comments. You can't make them
I made a comment, and you could mute me again, Mr. Nassif. I know you disagree with me. Why don't you go ahead and mute me? Say I'm being rude and insulting again. You know, you have a habit of not liking when people disagree with you, and you can't tolerate it. And that's getting really tiresome for the public because you want us to participate. Mr. Powell made, oh, we want the public here. We want the public here. Then I got Mr. Napolitano saying, oh, look, they can only talk for a minute.
Are you going to address something pertinent, please,
instead of just ranting? I'm going to all the points you people talked about, and you're arguing with me, and you're going to mute me.
No, I'm not. I'm asking you to address something
pertinent. And you're arguing because you won't let me talk.
Large audience of citizens, and I would ask you to talk respectfully.
I am, Mr. Nassif. You need to stop talking and listen more. And you don't do that. And that's what I'm trying to say. We raised the statute. We raised our concerns. You folks didn't address them. And that's on the record that you didn't address them. You want the public, kind of, but you're so worried about it, you're going to send out sign-up sheets because you got so many people coming to these meetings talking to you. Heck, you shut us down at the last meeting and wouldn't even let us talk. And now you go, oh yeah, what you said about being able to talk at the beginning of the meeting makes a lot of sense. Gee, we should have been doing that.
Are you done?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mooney, did you want to speak?
I did. 39 Golden Road, if I still need to do that. I just want to make a general, comment kind of through this whole process. Obviously, I'm disappointed, but, some of the comments from the board was, it was open before. We had, open discussion when you were passing this stuff. You did, and we missed it. Yeah, if we wanted our, voice heard, maybe we should have came out then. My problem with that is just that we don't really expect some of our, representatives to be passing, new regulations where, an RA zone can be changed. I didn't think I really did not expect people, in government to be doing that to some of the property. So I didn't show up then. That was, I guess, the point to do it. And I just hope moving forward, with some of these, comments from the public, they're heard you know, it did concern us. We voiced our concerns. Obviously, it went not the way we wanted it to, but there is, you know, additional, you know, permits that have to be applied for this. And I hope that the public, you know, is heard.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Anyone, any other members of the public? Catherine's iPad.
Hi, on behalf of the Commission on Aging, I just want to thank you for listening, paying attention to what we had, and also Paula Stahl, God bless you, because you did an outstanding job on this town plan. So thank you, thank you, thank you. That's it.
Thank you for your input. I really appreciated it. Anyone else who has anything to say? Donna, your screen is Mr. McGauley.
Yep, this is Mike McGauley, 33 Garland Road. So I also would like to say I'm disappointed with the decision, and I have a lot of concerns that, if I could speak to this, tell me if I'm not allowed to. I have a lot of concerns this won't be limited to the number of events that have been cited. I'm concerned that it's in perpetuity. I'm concerned about what it means for undeveloped land. I would rather see houses than see wedding venues. I think it would be less traffic. I think it's in a rural area, which is designed for people to live in, not for commercial. There's a lot of unused commercial land in Columbia, but it doesn't fit what somebody would like, which is a wedding venue, which doesn't look good on Route 6. But what also doesn't look good is a wedding venue in the backyard of somebody who's been living there far longer.
Can I ask you to not address the application that we have a public hearing set for in the future?
Okay.
If you want to talk about the generalities of what went on tonight with regard to the repeal of this regulation, I would ask you to do that as a courtesy to the large number of people that are in the meeting and respecting their time.
Okay. So I guess I would just say, generally speaking, I think it's a poor decision, and I think it opens up the floodgates for more and more commercial development. And if your goal is to bring in businesses and drive out residents, then I think you'll head in that direction. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to speak? Nikki?
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. So a lot's been said. Clearly, I'm disappointed. But as elected officials, you know, this is a tough job. After this, I would never run for your positions. But I'm still confused as to when I'm supposed to talk about all this. So I guess my hope is for just some education about the process going forward. It is so complicated.
You're free to call me anytime, and I'd be happy to discuss it with you on a one-to-one basis about the process in general. And I would encourage that. You know, I get a lot of good calls from people. The people on the commission, they're doing this because they absolutely love this community. They love what it is. They want to help guide it to be the best it can be as we go down the road. You know, you're motivated to put in the 100 hours a year that we probably put into being on planning and zoning. There's no motivation to do it for any reason other than we love this jewel of a community that we're in. And I think I speak for everyone on the commission. If anyone disagrees with me, please, now's the time to say it. But we love Columbia. Couldn't love a town more. And it's here we are. And so the idea of protecting people, yeah, that's high on our list of protecting people and protecting our community.
Well, thank you, and I will give you a call. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who has anything to say? I do appreciate everybody's time.
Hey, Rick, there's a hand up for Mooney.
Yeah, he already spoke.
Okay.
Mr. Mooney, did you want to say anything additional?
No, I didn't put it down.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right. With that said, we are going to close the meeting to the public because we do have an executive session to discuss a legal issue. And then we'll be adjourning after that. We won't discuss any other business, especially public business, after we go into our executive session. So And with that said, I'll ask you to log off if you're not a commission member. And Joshua, just turn this over to Paula